The massive space station floated in the darkness above the blue planet Zephyria. It was huge, bigger than any city on Earth. The station had been home to the Galactic Council for 3,000 years. Inside its metal walls, creatures from 12 different worlds gathered to make decisions that affected billions of lives across 17 star systems. Council Prime Minister Vexstar stood at the center of the Great Hall. His tall, thin body was covered in silver scales that caught the light from the crystal ceiling. Around him sat the other council members. There was Ambassador Creolon, whose body looked like it was made of living crystal. Next to him sat the insect-like Defense Minister Kurthik, his thick armor plates clicking as he moved. Representatives from the water world of Hydrus floated in special tanks, their tentacles swaying in the artificial currents. For 3,000 years, these beings had ruled the galaxy. They had seen hundreds of new species discover space travel. Each time, it was the same story. The new species would think they were special, that they were ready to join the great powers of the galaxy. Then the council would show them how wrong they were. Vexstar spoke to the assembled delegates, his voice carrying across the chamber. My fellow council members, we have detected another primitive species. They come from a small yellow star. They call Sol. Our scouts report unusual energy readings from their third planet. The council members made various sounds of boredom. This was routine for them now. Another backward species that needed to be taught their place in the galaxy. Meanwhile, far away in the deep darkness of space, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair. The chair was built into the bridge of the U-East Leviathan, humanity's first and only deep space warship. Morrison was a tall man with gray hair and calm blue eyes. He had served in Earth's Navy for 25 years before being chosen to command this historic mission. The bridge around him was busy with activity. Men and women in dark blue uniforms worked at their stations, their faces lit by the glow of computer screens. Through the main viewing window, Morrison could see the stars stretching away into infinity. Somewhere out there, Earth scientists believed was intelligent alien life. Commander Beth Rodriguez walked up to Morrison's chair. She was a short woman with black hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her brown eyes were serious as she looked at the display screen in her hands. Captain, we're receiving some interesting sensor readings. There's a ship approaching from the direction of the Altair system. It's definitely not human. Morrison felt his heart beat faster. After months of traveling through empty space, they were finally going to meet alien life. He stood up from his chair and walked to the main display screen at the front of the bridge. Ship that appeared on the screen was beautiful. It was smooth and curved, like a work of art. Silver metal caught the light from distant stars. The vessel was about the size of a human destroyer, maybe 300 meters long. Elegant fins extended from its sides, and soft blue light glowed from its engines. How long until they reach us? Morrison asked. About 2 hours at their current speed, Rodriguez replied. Should I sound general quarters? Morrison thought for a moment. Earth's first contact protocols were clear. Show strength, but don't appear threatening. Be ready for anything, but hope for the best. No, not yet, but put the crew on alert. I want everyone at their stations. And get me Admiral Carter on the quantum communicator. Back on the alien ship, Captain Zermouth looked at the readings on his screen with growing confusion. His ship, the diplomatic vessel Harmony, was one of the Council's finest. It carried the most advanced sensors in the galaxy. But the readings he was getting from the human vessel made no sense. Zermouth was a member of the Altair Collective, a species that looked somewhat like humans, but with longer limbs and large, dark eyes. He had conducted first contact with dozens of species over his long career. The process was always the same. Approach the primitive vessel, demonstrate superior technology, and explain how the new species could serve the Council. his science officer. Feldar turned from her station. Her multiple tentacles moved nervously as she spoke. "Captain, I'm getting strange readings from the human vessel. The power signature is much larger than it should be for a ship of that size." Zermith waved a long, thin hand dismissively. "Primitive fusion reactors often produce unusual readings. These humans are probably using some crude nuclear technology. Don't worry about it." But Feldar looked worried. Her tentacles continued to twitch as she stared at her instruments. "Sir, the readings are getting stronger. Whatever they're using. For power, it's not like anything in our databases." On the Leviathan, Chief Engineer Tony Walsh was in the engine room, checking the massive fusion reactors that powered the ship. The reactors were works of art, each one the size of a small building. They produced enough power to light up a city, and that was just for normal operations. When the ship's weapon systems were fully powered, the energy output was beyond anything Earth had ever created before. Walsh was a big man with graying hair and hands that were always stained with grease. He had worked on ships his whole life, but nothing compared to the Leviathan. The ship was 12 kilometers long, filled with the most advanced technology humanity had ever built. Its hull was made of new metal alloys that could withstand the impact of small asteroids. Its weapon systems included railguns that could fire metal slugs at a significant fraction of the speed of light. "All systems showing green, Captain," Walsh reported over the communication system. "The new quantum reactors are running smooth as silk. We could power half of New York with the energy we're producing." Morrison nodded as he listened to the report. The Leviathan was humanity's greatest achievement, but it was also their only deep space warship. Earth's leaders had decided to put all their resources into building one perfect vessel rather than many smaller ones. If something went wrong out here, there would be no backup. Communications. Officer Amy Preston looked up from her station. She was a young woman with blonde hair and excited green eyes. "Captain, I'm receiving a signal from the alien vessel. It's some kind of mathematical sequence. I think they're trying to establish communication." Morrison felt a chill of excitement run down his spine. This was it. Humanity's first contact with alien intelligence. Everything they did in the next few hours would determine the future of the human race. "Put it through the translation computers," Morrison ordered, "and prepare our own response sequence. Let's see if we can talk to them." As the two ships moved closer to each other through the vast darkness of space, neither crew fully understood what they were about to begin. The aliens thought they were approaching another primitive species that needed to be controlled. The humans thought they were about to make peaceful contact with a friendly alien civilization. Both of them were wrong. Captain Zermoth stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the human vessel grow larger on his main screen. Something was wrong, very wrong. The ship that had appeared small and manageable from a distance was now revealing itself to be much bigger than his instruments had first suggested. "Feldar, run another scan of that vessel," Zermath ordered. His voice carried a note of concern that his crew had never heard before. The science officer's tentacles moved rapidly over her controls. Her large eyes widened as she read the results. "Captain, the readings don't make sense. The ship appears to be at least 4 kilometers long, but that's impossible. No newly spacefaring species has ever built anything that large." Zermath felt a cold sensation in his stomach. In his 200 years of service, he had never encountered a situation like this. The Council's files contained records of every species they had ever contacted. None of them had possessed technology advanced enough to build vessels of this size on their first journey into deep space. "Are you certain of these readings?" he asked. "I've run the scan 3 times, sir. Each time the results are the same. The vessel is massive, and its power output is beyond anything in our databases." On the Leviathan, Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker sat at his tactical station, monitoring the approaching alien ship. Parker was a quiet man with brown hair and steady hands. He had been trained to handle humanity's most advanced weapon systems, but right now those weapons were powered down to minimal levels. "Captain," Parker reported, "the alien vessel is definitely armed, but their weapons appear to be energy-based. Nothing we haven't seen in our simulations." Captain Morrison nodded. Earth's military scientists had spent years trying to imagine what alien weapons might look like. They had prepared for energy beams, plasma cannons, and even exotic particle weapons. The Leviathan's armor and shields had been designed to handle anything they could think of. "Keep monitoring them, but don't do anything that might seem threatening," Morrison ordered. "We want this first meeting to go smoothly." Commander Rodriguez approached Morrison's chair with a datapad in her hands. "Captain, we've successfully decoded their communication signal. They're asking for permission to approach and conduct what they call integration protocols." Morrison frowned. "Integration protocols? That's an odd way to phrase first contact. Maybe it's just a translation error," Rodriguez suggested. "Their language is completely different from anything we've encountered." Meanwhile, on the alien ship, Captain Zermoth was trying to understand what he was seeing. His vessel's computers were designed to analyze any ship they encountered and provide detailed information about its capabilities. But the human vessel was breaking every rule in the book. "Sir," called out his communications officer, a being named Yulzep, whose blue skin was now pale with worry. "The human vessel is responding to our signals. They're agreeing to let us approach." Zermoth should have felt relieved, but instead he felt more nervous than ever. In his experience, primitive species usually responded to first contact with either fear or aggression. The humans seemed almost eager to meet them. That level of confidence suggested they had good reason to feel secure. "Feldar, I want you to focus all sensors on their weapon systems. I need to know what we're dealing with." The science officers' tentacles worked frantically at her console. After several minutes, she looked up with an expression of pure terror. "Captain, their weapon systems are not active, but the energy conduits suggest they have the power to level a small planet. I've never seen anything like it." Back on the Leviathan, Communications Officer Amy Preston was working with the ship's translation computers to establish better communication with the aliens. The process was slow but fascinating. The alien language used mathematical concepts that were completely different from human thinking. "Captain," Preston announced, "I'm getting a clearer picture of their message. They're asking us to prepare our primary vessel for inspection. They want to come aboard." Morrison exchanged glances with Rodriguez. "Primary vessel? Do they think we have a whole fleet out here?" "Maybe they're being cautious," Rodriguez suggested. "They might assume we have other ships nearby." Morrison made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. "Tell them they're welcome to come aboard. Activate the external lighting systems so they can see our docking bays clearly." Chief Engineer Tony Walsh received the order. In the engine room, he had been monitoring the alien ship's approach with professional interest. Their technology was clearly advanced, but it seemed to follow principles that human scientists understood. "Activating external lighting," Walsh reported. "All docking bays are now illuminated." The moment the Leviathan's external lights came online, Captain Zermoth's world changed forever. The human vessel revealed itself in all its massive glory. The ship wasn't 4 kilometers long, as his sensors had suggested. It was 12 kilometers of pure military might, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The bridge of the diplomatic vessel, Harmony, fell completely silent. Zermoth stared at the screen, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. The human ship was larger than most space stations. Its hull was covered with gun ports, missile launchers, and energy weapons that made his own ship's armaments look like toys. Communications, Zermith whispered, his voice barely audible. Get me an emergency channel to the Council. Priority. Alpha. Yulsep's hands shook as he opened the communication channel. Channel open, sir. Council command, this is Captain Zermoth of the Harmony. I need to speak with Prime Minister Vexstar immediately. We have a situation. On the Council station, the emergency signal caused instant alarm. Prime Minister Vexstar was in his private chambers when the alert came through. He had been reviewing routine reports about trade disputes and resource allocation. The last thing he expected was an emergency call from a first contact mission. What is it, Captain? Vexstar asked as Zermoth's image appeared on his screen. Sir, the humans ... their ship. It's not what we expected. It's massive, sir. 12 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could destroy our entire fleet. Vexstar's scales changed color, shifting from silver to a deep purple that indicated extreme stress. That's impossible. Our scouts reported a primitive species with basic fusion technology. The scouts were wrong, sir. I'm transmitting visual data now. When the images reached the Council station, Vexstar felt his knees give out. He had to grab his desk to keep from falling. The ship on his screen was beyond anything in the Council's military arsenal. It was a dreadnought, a weapon of war that could single-handedly conquer star systems. Captain, Vexstar said, his voice shaking, do they know you're transmitting these images? No, sir. We're maintaining communication silence. Except for this channel. Good. Don't let them know we're afraid. Continue with the mission, but be extremely careful. We need to know what their intentions are. Back on the Leviathan, the crew was preparing for their first face-to-face meeting with alien life. Dr. Kate Sullivan, the ship's medical officer, was setting up a quarantine area in case the aliens carried dangerous diseases. Security Chief Dan Cooper was selecting his most diplomatic guards for the meeting. Captain Morrison walked through the corridors of his ship, looking at everything with new eyes. He had always been proud of the Leviathan, but now he wondered what the aliens would think of it. He hoped they would be impressed by humanity's achievement. He had no idea that his ship had just become the most feared weapon in the galaxy. Alien vessel moved closer, its crew terrified, but trying to maintain their composure. The humans waited eagerly to welcome their new friends. Neither side understood that they were about to begin the most important diplomatic encounter in Galactic history. And it was all based on a complete misunderstanding. The emergency alert echoed through the Council station like a death knell. Prime Minister Vexstar's clawed hands shook as he activated the emergency assembly signal. Within minutes, representatives from all 12 member species were rushing to the main chamber, their various forms of panic evident in their movements. Ambassador Krelon arrived first, his crystal body making sharp ringing sounds as he moved quickly across the metal floor. The stress of the situation was already showing on his translucent form. Small cracks were appearing along his surface, something that only happened when his species faced extreme danger. Defense Minister Kurthik scuttled into the chamber on his 6 legs, his thick armor plates clicking together rhythmically. His compound eyes were wide with concern as he took his position at the military planning table. Behind him came the representatives from the water world of Hydrus, their tank suits making gurgling sounds as they moved. What is this emergency? Demanded Senator Wexenol from the volcanic world of Pyros. His rocky skin was glowing orange with irritation. I was in the middle of important negotiations with the mining guild. Vexstar stood at the center of the chamber, his silver scales now completely purple with stress. We have a situation with the new species from the Sol system. Captain Zermoth has discovered something ... unexpected. The main viewing screen activated, showing the images that Zermoth had transmitted. The assembled delegates fell silent as they saw the massive human warship floating in space. The vessel was unlike anything in their databases. A floating city of metal and weapons that dwarf even their largest military stations. Ambassador Creolon's crystal form made a sharp cracking sound. A long fracture appeared down his left side, and he had to grab the nearest support beam to keep from falling apart completely. That ... that cannot be real. No species develops technology like that on their first journey into space. The images are confirmed, Vextar said grimly. Our sensors don't lie. This vessel is 12 kilometers long and armed with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. Senator Wexnell's rocky skin turned from orange to deep red. Are you telling us that these humans have built a dreadnought that surpasses anything we possess? That appears to be the case. A chamber erupted in chaos. The delegate from the insect world of Chitros began making high-pitched clicking sounds of distress. The representatives from Hydrus released clouds of stress pheromones. That triggered the emergency air filtration system. Even the normally calm beings from the ice world of Glacies were showing signs of panic. Meanwhile, aboard the Leviathan, Captain Morrison was completely unaware of the terror he had caused. He walked through the ship's corridors with Chief Medical Officer Dr. Kate Sullivan discussing preparations for the alien visitors. Have you finished setting up the quarantine procedures? Morrison asked. Dr. Sullivan nodded. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and kind eyes. Yes, Captain. We've prepared a secure area where we can meet with the aliens safely. I've also set up medical scanners to check for any biological incompatibilities. Good. What about the welcoming ceremony? Security Chief Cooper has everything arranged. We'll have an honor guard, but they'll be carrying ceremonial weapons only. We don't want to appear threatening. Morrison smiled. He was genuinely excited about meeting alien life for the first time. Earth's leaders had dreamed of this moment for centuries. Finally, humanity would take its place among the stars as part of a larger galactic community. On the alien ship, Captain Zermoth was struggling to maintain control of his crew. The sight of the human dreadnought had shaken everyone aboard. His science officer Feldar was running continuous scans, trying to understand the scope of the threat they were facing. Captain, Feldar reported, her tentacles trembling. I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the human vessel. They have enough firepower to glass an entire planet. Zermoth closed his large eyes and tried to think. His training had prepared him for many situations, but not this. He was supposed to be conducting a routine first contact with a primitive species. Instead, he was face to face with what appeared to be the most advanced military vessel in the galaxy. Are their weapons active? He asked. No, sir. Everything appears to be powered down to minimal levels. But the energy conduits suggest they could bring their full arsenal online in minutes. Communications Officer Yul Sepp looked up from his station. Captain, we're receiving another message from the human vessel. They're inviting us to dock and meet with their representatives. Zermoth felt his heart pounding. The humans were being polite, even friendly. But that could be a trap. A species capable of building a ship like that might be testing him, seeing how he would react to their show of force. Acknowledge their message, he ordered. Tell them we accept their invitation. Back on the council station, the emergency session was growing more desperate by the minute. Military advisors were being called in from across the galaxy. Admiral Vexmore, the council's highest-ranking military officer, studied the images of the human ship with growing alarm. We need to know their intentions, Admiral Vexmore said. His species looked like tall, gray humanoids with large heads and no hair. Are they planning to invade, or are they simply showing us their strength? According to Captain Zermoth's reports, they seem friendly, Vextar replied. They've invited him aboard their vessel. That could be a trap, Defense Minister Kurthek clicked. They might be planning to capture him. Ambassador Creolon, who had managed to stop his crystal form from cracking further, spoke up. Or they might be genuinely peaceful. Some species do prefer diplomacy to conquest. With a ship like that, they don't need to prefer anything, Senator. Wexenel growled. They can simply take whatever they want. The debate continued, but everyone in the chamber knew they were really discussing one thing: how to survive first contact with a species that appeared to be more advanced than they were. On the Leviathan, Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker was monitoring the alien ship's approach to their docking bay. The alien vessel was graceful and beautiful, a work of art compared to the more utilitarian design of human ships. "Captain," Parker reported, "the alien vessel is requesting permission." "To dock at Bay 7. Permission granted," Morrison replied. "Have the welcoming committee ready." Chief Engineer Tony Walsh was in the docking bay, making sure everything was perfect for their guests. The bay was massive, designed to accommodate shuttles and cargo vessels. The alien ship looked small inside it, like a toy floating in a swimming pool. "All systems green," Walsh reported. "Atmosphere is stable. Gravity is set to standard Earth normal." Dr. Martin Evans, the ship's xenobiologist, was practically vibrating with excitement. This was the moment he had trained for his entire career. He was about to meet alien life for the first time, and he had dozens of questions prepared. "Remember," Captain Morrison said to his senior staff, "we want to make a good first impression. These might be humanity's first allies among the stars." As the alien ship settled into the docking bay, Captain Zermatt took a deep breath. He was about to step aboard what might be the most dangerous vessel in the galaxy. His crew looked at him with a mixture of respect and fear. "Remember," he told them, "we represent the entire Galactic Council. Whatever happens, we must maintain our dignity." The airlock sealed with a soft hiss, and the two species prepared to meet face to face. The humans were excited about greeting new friends. The aliens were terrified of meeting their potential conquerors. Neither side realized that the fate of the galaxy might depend on what happened in the next few hours. The airlock door opened with a soft hiss, and Captain Morrison stepped forward to greet humanity's first alien visitors. He wore his best dress uniform, complete with medals and ribbons that represented his years of service. Behind him stood Commander Rodriguez, Dr. Sullivan, and a small honor guard carrying ceremonial weapons. Three beings emerged from the alien ship, and Morrison felt his breath catch in his throat. They were unlike anything he had imagined. The leader was tall and thin, with long limbs and large dark eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. His skin was pale gray, and he moved with careful, measured steps. Behind him came two other beings. One looked like a person made of living crystal, catching the light from the bay's overhead lamps. The other had multiple tentacles instead of arms and seemed to float slightly above the ground. All three wore simple robes that seemed to shimmer with their own inner light. "Welcome aboard the U.E.'s Leviathan," Morrison said, stepping forward with his hand extended in the traditional human greeting. "I am Captain Jake Morrison, representing the United Earth Space Command." The tall alien leader hesitated for a moment, then reached out with his own thin hand. His fingers were longer than human fingers, and his skin felt cool to the touch. "I am Ambassador Trelwyn of the Galactic Council. This is Science Officer Feldar and Cultural Specialist Morkith." Morrison smiled warmly. "It's an honor to meet you. This is a historic moment for both our species." Ambassador Trelwyn's large eyes studied Morrison carefully. The human captain seemed genuinely pleased to meet them, but that could be an act. Anyone capable of building a ship like this would certainly be skilled at deception. "Yes," Trelwyn replied carefully. "Historic indeed." The group moved through the corridors of the Leviathan toward the main conference room. The alien visitors walked in silence, their eyes constantly moving as they took in everything around them. The corridors were wide enough for vehicles to drive through, and the ceiling was so high it disappeared into shadows above. Dr. Sullivan noticed that the crystal being Morkith seemed to be having difficulty walking. Small cracks were appearing on his surface, and he was making soft ringing sounds with each step. "Are you all right?" she asked with genuine concern. "Do you need medical attention?" Morkith's voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I am overwhelmed by the scale of your vessel. My species reacts physically to extreme stress." "Oh, I'm sorry," Morrison said, looking concerned. "We didn't mean to cause you distress. Would you like us to move to a smaller room?" The offer of consideration caught the aliens off guard. In their experience, powerful species usually showed off their strength, not worried about the comfort of weaker beings. "That is very kind of you," Trellwyn said, his voice showing surprise. "But we can manage." They entered the main conference room, and the aliens had to stop and stare. The room was larger than most buildings on their home worlds. A massive table sat in the center, surrounded by dozens of chairs. The walls were covered with screens showing star maps and technical displays. "Please, sit wherever you're comfortable," Morrison said, gesturing to the chairs. The aliens chose seats at one end of the table, while the humans sat across from them. Morrison had prepared gifts for this meeting. He pushed a small box across the table toward Trellwyn. "These are some items from our world," Morrison explained. "Music, art, and literature from Earth. We thought you might find them interesting." Trellwyn opened the box with trembling fingers. Inside were data crystals containing thousands of hours of human culture. There were symphonies by Bach and Mozart, paintings by Van Gogh and Picasso, and books by Shakespeare and Dickens. "This is very generous," Trellwyn said. He was genuinely moved by the gesture, but also confused. Why would a species with such military might share their culture so freely? "We're excited to learn about your culture, too," Dr. Sullivan added with a smile. "Dr. Evans, our xenobiologist, has so many questions about your species." Science officer Feldar's tentacles twitched nervously. "You study alien life forms?" "Well, we study the possibility of alien life," Dr. Sullivan explained. "Until today, we had never actually met any." "You're the first." The aliens exchanged glances. This was not what they had expected. The humans seemed to be treating this as a routine first contact, not as a meeting between conquerors and the conquered. "Captain Morrison," Trellwyn said carefully, "may I ask about your ship? It is quite impressive." Morrison's chest swelled with pride. "Thank you. The Leviathan is humanity's greatest achievement. It took us 15 years to build her. She's our first real deep space vessel." "Your first?" Feldar asked, her tentacles trembling. "Yes," Commander Rodriguez replied. "We're building 12 more like her, along with smaller escort vessels. Earth is committed to exploring the galaxy." Peacefully, the alien delegation felt their hearts sink. 13 ships like this one would be enough to conquer the entire galaxy. The humans were talking about peaceful exploration, but they were building a fleet that could destroy every civilization in known space. Meanwhile, back on the council station, the emergency session had turned into a full-scale panic. Military advisors from across the galaxy were providing increasingly grim assessments of the situation. "If they have 13 ships like that one," Admiral Lexmore was saying, "we have no choice but to surrender immediately. Our entire combined fleet would be destroyed in minutes." "We don't know that they're hostile," Ambassador Creelon said, though his crystal form was still showing stress fractures. "Perhaps they really are peaceful." "No species builds ships like that for peaceful purposes," Defense Minister Kurthek clicked angrily. "They're weapons of war, pure and simple." Senator Wexenel's rocky skin was glowing bright red with anger and fear. We should have seen this coming. The scout reports mentioned unusual energy signatures. We should have investigated more carefully. It's too late for that now, Vextar said. The question is, what do we do? The chamber fell silent as the most powerful beings in the galaxy tried to figure out how to survive. They had ruled 17 star systems for 3,000 years, but in a single day, everything had changed. We offer them everything, Admiral Vexmore said finally. Territory, resources, technology, whatever they want. And if they want everything? Senator Wexenel asked. Then we give it to them. Back on the Leviathan, the meeting was continuing. In a much more friendly atmosphere, Captain Morrison was describing Earth's history and culture, while the aliens listened with growing amazement. So your species has only been in space for about a century? Trelwyn asked. That's right, Morrison replied. We've been to our moon and the nearby planets, but this is our first journey to another star system. The aliens couldn't believe what they were hearing. A species that had been in space for only a century had built technology that surpassed anything the Council possessed. Either the humans were lying, or they were the most advanced species in the galaxy. Captain, Trelwyn said slowly, I have been authorized by the Galactic Council to make you an offer. Morrison leaned forward with interest. What kind of offer? We would like to invite humanity to join the Galactic Council as a full member. You would be given territorial rights to an entire sector of space, including several star systems with habitable planets. Morrison's eyes widened. That's incredibly generous. What would we have to do in return? Nothing, Trelwyn said quickly. The Council believes that humanity has much to offer the galaxy. We would be honored to have you as our partners. Commander Rodriguez looked puzzled. This seems too good to be true. Are you sure about this? The Council has made its decision. Trelwyn replied. We believe this arrangement would benefit everyone. What the aliens didn't say was that they were offering humanity everything they could in the hope that the humans would be satisfied with ruling one sector instead of conquering. The entire galaxy. Captain Morrison looked at his senior staff, then back at the aliens. We would need to discuss this with Earth's government, of course. But I can say that humanity is very interested in peaceful cooperation with your council. The word cooperation sent chills through the alien delegation. They heard it as the humans agreeing to work with the council rather than simply destroying it. Excellent, Trelwyn said, trying to keep his voice steady. We will send the formal documents to your government immediately. As the meeting continued, neither side fully understood what was happening. The humans thought they were making friends with a generous alien civilization. The aliens thought they were negotiating for the survival of their species. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and everyone involved was operating on completely wrong assumptions. Captain Morrison sat back in his chair and looked at his senior staff with amazement. The alien offer was beyond anything Earth's leaders had dreamed of. Entire star systems, full membership in a galactic government, and peaceful cooperation with dozens of alien species. This is incredible, Dr. Sullivan said quietly. They're offering us more territory than we could explore in 100 years. Commander Rodriguez nodded, but she looked puzzled. I have to admit, I'm surprised by how generous they're being. Most first contact scenarios we trained for involved years of careful negotiation. Maybe they're just more advanced than we thought, Morrison replied. A civilization that's been around for thousands of years probably knows how to recognize potential friends. Chief Engineer Tony Walsh had joined the meeting to discuss technical cooperation. He was excited about the possibility of sharing technology with alien civilizations. Captain, they're offering to show us their star charts and navigation systems. We could learn about parts of the galaxy we never even knew existed. On the other side of the table, Ambassador Trollwyn was trying to hide his growing terror. The humans were discussing their plans for exploration and expansion with casual confidence. They talked about building more ships and exploring distant star systems as if they had unlimited resources and technology. Captain Morrison, Trollwyn said carefully, you mentioned that you are building additional vessels like this one. May I ask how many you plan to construct? Morrison smiled proudly. Earth has approved construction of 12 more Titan-class ships over the next 10 years. We're also building smaller escort vessels and support ships. Eventually, we hope to have a fleet capable of exploring the entire galaxy. Science Officer Feldar's tentacles went completely still. The humans were casually describing a military buildup that would make them the dominant power in known space. 12 more ships like the Leviathan would be enough to conquer every civilization in the galaxy twice over. That is ... quite ambitious, Trollwyn managed to say. We're excited about the possibilities, Dr. Solomon added. With your star charts and our ships, we could map every corner of the galaxy. Think of all the new species we might discover, all the scientific knowledge we could share. The aliens heard something very different. The humans were talking about using Council star charts to locate every civilization in the galaxy. Combined with their massive fleet, it sounded like a plan for systematic conquest. Back on the Council station, the emergency session had reached a state of complete panic. Reports were coming in from Captain Zermoth about the meeting aboard the human dreadnought. Each update made the situation seem worse. They're building 12 more ships, Admiral Vexmore announced to the assembled delegates. 12 more vessels like the one our delegation is currently aboard. The chamber erupted in chaos. Senator Wexenol's rocky skin was glowing so bright it was difficult to look at him directly. The representatives from Hydrus were releasing many stress pheromones that the air filtration system was running at maximum capacity. We have to offer them more, Defense Minister Kurthik clicked frantically. Whatever they want, we give it to them. What more can we offer? Ambassador Creolon asked. His crystal form was covered in cracks, and small pieces were falling to the floor. We've already given them an entire sector. We give them 2 sectors, Nexstar said desperately. 3, if necessary. Better to rule part of the galaxy than be destroyed completely. Meanwhile, aboard the Leviathan, the cultural exchange was continuing. The humans had shared music, art, and literature from Earth. Now they were eager to learn about alien culture. We'd love to establish cultural exchange programs, Morrison said enthusiastically. Our universities would be thrilled to study your history and science. And we could set up trade agreements, Commander Rodriguez added. Earth has resources that might be valuable to your civilization. Dr. Martin Evans, who had been quietly taking notes throughout the meeting, finally spoke up. From a scientific perspective, this is the greatest day in human history. We have so much to learn from each other. The aliens interpreted every friendly comment as a veiled threat. When the humans talked about studying their history, the aliens heard plans for intelligence gathering. When they mentioned trade agreements, it sounded like demands for tribute. Of course, Trollwyn said nervously. The Council would be happy to arrange whatever agreements you feel are appropriate. Lieutenant Commander Steve Parker, who had been monitoring the ship's systems during the meeting, made an announcement that would seal humanity's reputation as the galaxy's most feared power. Captain, you asked me to run a diagnostic on our weapon systems while our guests are aboard. The test is complete. All systems are functioning perfectly. Morrison nodded approvingly. Excellent. I want everything in perfect condition for our journey to the Council station. What Parker had done was a routine weapons test, something that was performed on all military vessels to ensure safety and reliability. But to the alien delegation, it sounded like a demonstration of power. The humans had just tested their planet-killing weapons while alien diplomats were aboard their ship, Feldar's tentacles were shaking so violently she could barely operate her recording equipment. The humans weren't just confident in their military superiority. They were willing to show it off during a diplomatic meeting. "The test went well?" Trelwyn asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Perfect," Parker replied cheerfully. "Every weapon system checked out. We're ready for anything the galaxy might throw at us." The alien delegation understood this as a warning. The humans were telling them that their weapons were functional and ready to use. It was the kind of casual threat that only a truly dominant species would make. Captain Morrison stood up and extended his hand to Trelwyn. "Ambassador, this has been one of the best days of my life. I'm looking forward to working with the Council for years to come." Trelwyn shook the offered hand, amazed that he was still alive. The human captain seemed genuinely pleased with the meeting, which meant the negotiations had gone well from their perspective. The Council had apparently offered enough to satisfy humanity's immediate demands. "We are honored by your friendship," Trelwyn said, and he meant it. If humanity was willing to work with the Council, instead of simply destroying it, the galaxy might survive after all. As the alien delegation prepared to return to their ship, Captain Morrison made one final gesture that would become legendary throughout the galaxy. "Please take these gifts back to your people," he said, handing Trelwyn a collection of items from Earth. "We want every member of the Council to know that humanity comes in peace." The phrase "comes in peace" while standing on the bridge of the most powerful warship in the galaxy struck the aliens as either incredibly arrogant or incredibly generous. Either way, it was the statement of a species that held all the power and knew it. As the alien ship departed from the Leviathan's docking bay, Captain Zermoth transmitted his final report to the Council station. "Mission successful. The humans have agreed to peaceful cooperation. They appear satisfied with our territorial offer and are willing to work within the Council structure." What he didn't report was his private conclusion. Humanity had chosen to be merciful, but their capacity for destruction was absolute. The galaxy now belonged to the humans, whether they realized it or not. Back on Earth, Admiral Lisa Carter received Captain Morrison's report with amazement. The first contact mission had been more successful than anyone had dared hope. Not only had they made peaceful contact with alien life, but humanity had been invited to join a galactic government with full membership rights. "It seems the universe is full of reasonable people," Carter remarked to her aide as she reviewed the generous terms of the Galactic Treaty. She had no idea that across 17 star systems, the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy were restructuring their entire societies around the assumption that humanity had become the apex predator of space. The age of human dominance had begun, and the only species that didn't know it was humanity itself.